So, somebody were to ask you the question, how did you get through this week? How did you survive on this planet? And you might say, well, I prayed, ate, did the thing. No, I'm actually thinking scientifically, how do you live on this earth? How is it possible that this place is habitable? I mean, scientifically, how is it possible that the earth is habitable right now? It's the right distance from the sun. It's protected from the harmful solar, radiation, and by its magnetic field. It's kept warm by this insulating atmosphere. It's at the perfect place in proximity in the universe for life, this kind of life. If you want a life as a rock or a thing of carbon, maybe another planet, but this place is perfectly set in this world, in this universe. And I don't know where we're at right now. We're typically on an axis right now. I think we're like, who's the sun? John Hedderly. He's the sun. Let's pretend. Don't go to your head, please. But I think our axis I think we're going like this right now. Sorry. I'm not a scientist or an engineer or a space guy. But I do know this world, it's governed by law, by principles. This thing, it functions on time. It functions with this, what we call a closed system. There's gravity. This thing works. Law, order. God created this place. Or you can believe we're just lucky or by accident. You might want to try that. But ultimately, no. We believe. We believe this place is given by law, rules. Things happen on time. And so that's what happens when this whole world has other things that happen, supernatural things that actually pop into these laws. Sometimes the storms get stopped by the breath of Jesus. Or things happen like the sea might be parted. These are interpositions of God's hand who comes into this world and stops things. It's not normal. This is normal, but when those things happen, it's not normal. We call it supernatural. In most cases, we'll call, if we see something that's not by law, by principle, or by order, we'll say this is a miracle, right? And the Bible is filled with many miracles. We're looking at this story of Elijah in the book of Kings, 1st and 2nd Kings. And if you don't have one of these journals that has the Bible of Kings, we have them in the back. When you go out there, I want you to grab one, you and your family, and start reading the stories, because what's going to happen is you're going to see the world, and there are going to be moments that's going to interrupt of the normal science in the life of this world. That's right, I kicked a beach ball in. But I want to show you one of the stories as we begin today. Now, there is one story that was by Elijah just before this mountain moment that we're going to talk about. There are several of them. There's like major stories, 7 at least, miracles, we call them, where God has interposed his power into somebody's life. One of it was because the word comes to the mind or to the ears of Elijah. It says, "Go see this woman. She lives at this place, and I want you to stay there and ask if she can cook for you, that you can get food from her, and I will make sure that this happens." What's going on right now? There is a drought. There is no food anywhere. There's not much water anywhere. And so you have this woman. And so he has to go to this widow. He says, "By the way, there is this thing that I need to do in the area, and I'm wondering if you could feed me every day. And by the way, God will provide miraculously what we need." And okay, and because if we don't do that, I don't have enough like oil, I don't have enough meal, I don't have enough to be able to do it. And so, of course, the next day, Elijah's there at the table. She goes into her pantry. She goes in there and she looks to find for the oil. And there's oil. And so she makes a cake for all of them. And they eat. And they continue to go through that day. And it's a normal day. It's a 24-hour day in this world. But the next day, it came the time to get another breakfast. And what happens? So they go again, and there's oil again. And it happens every day. They go back into the kitchen, and she goes to that barrel. She goes to this pan. She gets all the things ready. There's flour again. And there's more oil again. You're so excited about this. How does this happen? And you're thinking about scientifically, how is he doing this? The next day comes. More oil. And it continued. What a miraculous moment. The day comes again. And it continues. And you're saying, how this possibly happened? This continued for how long? For the whole drought. I'm not going to do it for the whole drought. But it goes again and again. And some of you want me to do it even again. But this is not a trick. This was God telling people that I have a purpose for this. And in all of this, you see what happened in that moment. The people are all gathered. If you find in 1 Kings 18, you see at this, we see the people gathering. And last week we talked about the challenge for everyone. Israel is there. The prophets of Baal are there. All the people are gathered together, and that question came out, who are you going to believe? Are you going to live a life of worship to Baal and God, or are you going to commit your life completely to God? 100%. Just one God. And in all of this, they did not answer. But that's last week. Today we see the drama of the mountain. And you got to be excited, because if I can do that, you know I can do fire as well, right? No, I'm not allowed, and I do have a fire extinguisher right there if I need. However, let's go into the story. Before we do this, this is I'm an athlete. I love, competition. And I like a game. Practice is practice, practice, practice. I like that. It's okay. But I know I do the practicing because I get to play the game, right? The terms are set in the Bible. It says 450 prophets of Baal against one, okay? 45 prophets, and then there's Elijah, one, okay? There is some scoring taking place as well. We'll call, and the God will bring fire. That is the one who is God. So we'll know at the end of this challenge the one who is winning. Now, if you tell to the athletes and say, it's okay to have a tie, like in soccer sometimes, that's a complicated moment. I can explain that later. However, nobody wants to have a tie. Everybody sweat. We're good. That's fine. But really, you want to win. And honestly, it's at the expense of somebody else losing. That's the nature of that. But this is here on Mount Carmel, and there's some scoring. The scoring is whoever calls on your God and brings fire, that's the winner. Okay? What do they say? Finally, they say something. What do they say? What you say is good. So the terms are agreed upon right here. Now it's time for Baal to go up and do their thing. And they set up this thing. And in the story for Elijah, he says he's setting up for a fall. Look at the rules. The prophets of Baal, they get to go first. If you get first, you have an advantage, right? You take the first crack, you have the advantage of greater numbers. You have the home field advantage as well. At Mount Carmel, that's a place that Baal has put together their sanctuary. And this is why when the contest happens, there's an altar there already for Baal. There's no altar at this place for God. It's not set up, or it's not there. It might be, or broken, or whatever, but they'll have to rebuild when it's their turn. But it's all set up here. You can take as much time as you need as well. So this is almost like you're setting the advantage for the team of Baal. And you can use gymnastics, you can have a cool band, you can have theatrics, and whatever you can do to awaken Baal. And what you need to understand about Baal worship is it's not about Baal at all. Nobody knows anything about Baal. Baal worship is really about, and I have to say this carefully, it's the most self-serving type of worship possible. It's despicable. It's filled with debauchery. It's so immoral we can't even talk about these things in front of these little ears in this place. We don't need to say any more. This is a self-serving experience. It has nothing to do about somebody up there. It's all about us. And it is a horror. And it's something happens to the mind of people when you feed your appetite over and over and over again. You develop a muscle for this type of immorality. And you can call it worship. It's bad. really bad. And it says in chapter 18, verse 26, it says this, "Then they called on the name of Baal from the moment to noon. Baal, answer us." And there was no response. And they danced around that altar. They shouted louder and louder. They slashed themselves with swords and spears. That was their custom. This is not improvisation. This is what they did. And in their continued frantic prophesying all the way to the evening, they took the whole time, right? The whole time. And look at this phrase in verse 29. Look at this again. It says, emphatic in the Bible. There was no response, no answer, no one paid any attention. It's almost like Elijah set them up to do their very best, to be only the worst. And I don't tolerate trash talking. Dad, I've never seen you do it. I've never seen you do it. I know you want to sometimes. You got it in you. Me, I like to trash talk a little bit when we're playing soccer, basketball, football, and just driving with somebody else when I want to drive instead. So I like to do it a little bit. But I had a good coach who put me down, sat me down on the bench if I did that. And I remember I would bench anyone who would talk disrespectfully. So I'm so proud of our school and our teams. We have a light. When we go out, we have this light. We have such good men and women of character that speak. And so I'm just going to have a shout out for that. Well done. But in the Bible, if there's one verse that says some trash talking, it comes from Elijah. He comes out there and he is going to reduce Baal and his reputation. The more they prayed, the more futile their prayers would appear. So, now it's time for Jehovah. And when it's time for God to speak, and God allows this situation to go to the end. Have you seen this before? Where God creates this system, and there are circumstances, and when God is going to speak into people's lives, He let everything go to the last second. Do you love that? That cliffhanger moment? We have a God who does cliffhangers. And He pushes it all the way to the end. Why? Why in the world would God do this? Why start preaching about rain and have to wait 120 years before it starts to rain? Why don't we just surprise people and give them the last week, right? 120 years. What about the Exodus? The whole Exodus is about getting almost 2 million people out of Egypt and they're backed up on the Red Sea. And it's only then the armies are coming that it opens up. Why do we wait? Why do we dip 7 times into this muddy water at the end? Why? Why do we pick the little guy to fight the big guy? Why are we doing that? Why are we heating up the furnace 7 times hotter, right? Why do we take 300 soldiers to do a giant, it's just like it's an impossible situation. It's almost like we're creating this drama. Why did Jesus go to these fishermen who are pros and tells them to go to the one place that there is no fish and to drop down into the middle? Well, this is not going to happen. Why does he set up with so much drama? Why would you pick Mary, unassuming? But why did God pick Mary to be the mother of Jesus? I love that story more than all of the miracles, because God found this person who is humble. And instead of spending all of their time saying, check out my baby growing inside, she, instead of bragging, she's out there trying to pondering and treasuring this gift that's so holy inside of her. I love it. I love how God kind of sets it up this way. It's a little bit dramatic and it's kind of cool. But I wonder if there's a real good reason. It's because when we do something or see something sensational, we might be tempted to think it's by the hand of our ingenuity, our resources, our good smarts, our skill. Or maybe Elijah's just really, really spiritual. Nope. Everything is to the side. And the only one who is on the stage in these miraculous moments, it's for God and God alone. It happens over and over and over again. I love it. So this is what happened. In verse 33, fill up these jars of water and pour it on the offering, on the wood. Why do you start with, when you're doing a fire, do you start with water? I mean, chemically, some of our little scientists back there might say, there's moisture in just about everything. I'm not talking about you, thank you. Fill up all these jars of water. Do it again. Dump it out again. Do it a third time and fill it out, this whole area. Why water? What's going on right there? What's economically problematic in this story? There's a drought. And if you were to go into California and some dude is watering their lawn, there's a fight, right? Somebody brushes your teeth for 2 minutes instead of 1.5, or you don't have a cup. There's a fight. It's Elijah's taking all of their water and it's pouring out onto the altar. Because that's what you do when you want to start a fire, right? This is high drama. It's so not dramatic, but so pivotal to this whole story is right here. It's Elijah's prayer. When it's his time, listen to his prayer. No shouting, no gymnastics, no clever thing, no organ crooning in the backward to get the feeling going, right? No drum beats beating for this thing, driving our hearts. No, nothing like that. It's the prayer of a prophet who's obeying the word of God, saying this. Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. Let it be known today that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant, and have done all these things at your command. Let me stop with this prayer right now. The bottom line is, of all of the things between Genesis and Revelation, is all about the fact that God wants to be known. He wants to be known. He wants to know you, and he wants you to know him. I think that's why in the prayer of Jesus, he says in John 17, verse 3, you check this out, it says, it is to know God is salvation. To know God is salvation. John 17, verse 3. Check me on that, I know it. Let's go back to the prayer. Answer me, Lord. Answer me so these people will what? Know you, Lord, our God. And then what's the real reason why we're doing all of this dramatic stuff? So that you are turning your hearts back again. Your God is not vicious. He's not disconnected. He's not like 16 worlds away. His number one desire is to call us to return to him. The answer came quickly. It says in verse 38, it says, the fire of the Lord fell. It's almost like there's nothing else to say. It just happened. The fire of the Lord fell and burned up the what? Sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and the soil, and all of the water around. Do you know how hot it needs to be able to do that? You won't even see it. You can't even see it. It's that hot. So we're not talking about some sort of campfire moment that you might like. You can throw down a really good campfire. This is the presence of God, who is an all-consuming fire, who is present on that day to get rid of the sacrifice. Why? I am the sacrifice. And this altar, it's not about stones, it's about the walls of your heart and mind. And all of the other things that you might be distracted and stopped and detract, everything, I am going to evaporate it all until it's only one thing. God, and God alone. And what did the people said? The Lord, he is God. The Lord, he is God. Jehovah. This is a miracle. Isn't it? Does this happen to you all the time? In your world? But our world has a hard time with these stories, don't we? I mean, do you have these moments every week? Like Elijah pleads with God and a dead person is alive again. Elijah listens to God speaks, and every time he wants to. Elijah prays, and there's no rain, and Elijah's promised, and food appears, and Elijah calls for a face-off. between gods and God. And with dramatic fashion, it happens. It's like Elijah is on fire. He is like unstoppable. Seemingly. Come in the next couple weeks and you'll see that this is not true. He is not the one who's on fire. He's very vulnerable. And the miraculous in these moments is to show it's not to be a show. It's to show something. A miraculous moment in every story in the Bible in people's life, it should show something, but not to be a show. Because there's a purpose for our miraculous moments, and it has some limits too. And this is one of the things that we think about our world right now, is that you look at social media or whatever, and we see people putting the best things, your best things, the best things. And in the Bible, it's almost like it's a highlight reel, isn't it? It has the best things. Not everything is like that, but these are it's not a day-to-day journal from what's happened in history. There are reasons why we have these interpositions, or these what we call miracles. Number one, and we see it with Jesus. Number one, Jesus performed miracles to show compassion. He basically looks at a person who is in need, and you see the heart of God in his actions. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't say anything until he touches a person. Old Testament, go look at the whole Exodus again here. In Exodus 3, it says, I indeed have seen the misery of my people. They're crying out. I'm concerned about their what? Suffering. I'm going to fix it. What do you see in the miraculous? You see God stepping into people's life, where it's Old Testament or New, is because God has got a heart. A good heart. And he almost can't stop it. A second reason is because the identity of Jesus is in his power. And you don't always see it in conversations. And you see it in the Bible. Remember when John the Baptist was in prison? He comes out, and he sends a messenger to Jesus and says, What should we do? Are you the one who should come, or should we expect somebody else? Look at the response from Jesus. Jesus says, go back and report to John. What you see, the blind see, the lame walk, those who have leprosy are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the good news is being proclaimed. His identity is in being a powerful person. And the third person is friends. This is a closed system here with this earth, where things are governed by law. But in the time is coming when God resurrects this whole story again. And it's going to be renewed. And we're going to live in the presence of the supernatural. You're going to see power in every moment that we're going to do. We're going to hand the salt. It's going to be supernatural in heaven. This whole life that we're going to have, it's not limited. Our universe, our God will live with us. Get used to the supernatural at your table. I love that. Author Philip Yancey said this. He says, a sign or a miracle is not the same as a proof. A sign is merely a marker for someone to look for the right direction. In other words, if you see something that's not normal, it might be one of those moments for you to look and walk in a certain direction. I'll say this. All of the miracles recorded have not produced a revival. It doesn't happen. In fact, this mountain moment is done. As soon as this thing goes down and the smoke fades, this thing goes back to a very normal in a difficult place. There is no miracle from this place as we're going down. We're running. And there's a totally different experience. And I'm wondering, we love the miracle. We want that fantastic moment. But nobody is an enduring believer in Christ because of something happened like that. Point the direction. But if you're here because you love God, is that because of a miracle? Or because you got up, you got your heart into the direction of God? And over time, in the quiet, in normal, everyday moments, you grow into the life of God. And you got God's Spirit coming into you. It's normal. I used to have lots of really great miracle stories that would make you cry, jump out. I just scrapped them right now. No more stories, no illustrations, no extra. Come on up and sing. We don't need them. Our Savior, Jesus Christ, has come into this world. And his purpose to do one thing. What's the number one reason why the miracle will happen? It's to return you back to God every day. If it does happen, that's fine. But you and I, we don't need the fantastic when we already have the story. We have more information to stand and sing and dance or whatever it is we do because of what God has already done. And that's enough for me. I have never heard the word, like I've never heard a voice in my ear from God. This is all I got. I get more from other people. So maybe I'm just not open to the miraculous as much, but no, I recognize that. I pray for those moments. I have seen them. However, I'm not here because of those moments. Those moments move us into places to say, we're on the right direction. We're going home. And you want to see a miracle? It's coming.